thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm really happy you do it. Oh, I saw you on TV one time with your family.
Oh,
you remember?
Yeah.
You did a special and stuff. That was so nice.
Okay. Yeah, talking
really
about
nice.
that, it's awesome.
Yeah. So tell me this. Where were you born? Let's start off with that.
Yeah, so I'm from Montreal, Canada.
Okay. You're Canadian?
Yeah.
Eh?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, you grew up in Canada?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were American for some reason. I don't know why.
Well,
you've lost your accent? You know, eh?
Well, that's possible. So I've been in Japan 20 years, or almost 20 years.
Okay.
And so I grew up in Montreal, which is really bilingual, English and French.
So you speak French as well?
I did. I did a lot of my elementary school and high school in French, but it was kind of bilingual. It's a mix.
Okay.
And I have family members that didn't speak any English at all until they got, into adulthood and decided it was useful to start speaking and learning English. So, but coming to Japan, not using French, and then going back to Montreal for a visit, trying to speak French again, and then Japanese words come out. So it's kind of like...
Oh, so you speak Japanese now too?
Well, not as well as I would like. But certainly I guess my brain is not necessarily wired for too many languages.
Let me ask this. When you're growing up, is it just you? Are you the only child in your family?
I have two sisters and brother. 2 sisters and a brother, and they're older than me. So I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest?
Yeah.
So who's the first, a girl or a boy?
Sister, brother.
Now, how many years between you and the oldest?
8, 9.
Oh, there you guys are close.
Yeah.
You're pretty close.
Yeah.
Are you close with them now?
Yeah. My brother moved out to Calgary after graduating university, and he's still there. And so although we certainly catch up, we probably haven't seen each other in person in years now, so that's kind of sad, right?
What about your sisters?
Every time we go back to Montreal, which we make except for this past Christmas, we go every Christmas.
Every Christmas?
Every Christmas. And once in a while in the summer, but every Christmas we go back. And that's especially important with my daughter. We brought her as soon as she was born that Christmas, and every Christmas.
How's she doing with her English? And
awesome. She's 8.
8.
She's 8.
Oh, I haven't seen her. Yeah. You remember how she used to come into my arms and make me feel so that, and you allowed that. If I were a dad of a daughter, I don't know that I would let her go to any other man's arms while she's that young. Yeah. But she used to let me hug her, and that felt so good about that.
All the kids did it though, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. A lot of the kids did. Not all of them, but a lot of them did.
Yeah.
My parents would come. Some of them kind of kept their distance and said, nah, now you guys go ahead.
Yeah.
So tell me this. When you grew up in Canada, what was it like? I mean, your mom and dad still together? Are they still here?
Yeah, they're still together, still here, and it makes the Christmases that much more important to me.
Where are they from?
They're all Montrealers. Everybody is, although I think my father was born and spent the first couple of years of his life in Winnipeg.
Okay.
But Winnipeg has the biggest French-Canadian community outside of Quebec, within Winnipeg. So he grew up in that area, St. Boniface. But for some reason they headed back to Montreal. And so we have interesting mix. We've got, my 2 grandfathers have French-Canadian names, but my grandmothers have Dutch and Irish names. So it's quite a mix, but that itself is French-Canadian.
That's French, of course.
French-Canadian is quite a mix of all kinds of things.
Oh. Okay, so growing up, of course, you did hockey, but tell me about your younger years. You had no other choice. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So tell me, what did you do as a little kid growing up? I mean, like, all of you guys were close, because there's only 8 years between you and the oldest.
Yeah.
So you knew some of the same friends, and you got to know their friends.
Yeah, but I would say there's enough space between my sisters and me that we didn't share friends. However, the second sister, she spent a lot of time, especially when she got to her early teens. I think she enjoyed bringing me along to all our
really?
soccer games and stuff like that. So, you know, it was really, we were very close.
Is that right? And you still are, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you and her are the tightest in the family?
I think so.
Well, I mean, anyway, you talk to her more. Not that you don't love
Yeah,
her
that's
more.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I think that's fair to say.
I have a sister like that too. I have a sister I talk with more than I have both of my sisters are younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
I have an older brother, then it's me, and then I have two younger sisters. And the youngest sister and I talk. I just finished talking to her before you came in. As a matter of fact, Valerie, I told you I'd be doing this podcast, and, and this is Bill. I just wanted to say a shout out to my sister, Valerie. She's been watching these too and listening to them. They make me very happy. You said you listened to the podcast?
Yeah, but I didn't know they were on video, so this is, I'm
that's
not
why
prepared.
That's why you do the cameras and stuff, and you go in there, yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you're really close with your sister, and she started taking you around with her to your friends and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But in Montreal, didn't grow up in like the city area. We grew up in the suburbs, and certainly back when I was a kid, we didn't have play dates and stuff like that. It was as soon as we could get out the door, we were out the door.
And before it got dark, you had to get home.
Yeah, like that.
That's how it was.
Yeah, and I think the development of the area wasn't certainly not as thick as it is now. We had a lot of wooded areas and stuff like that. So I think I grew up really nice. I think we had a wonderful time.
Right. So what are some of your fond memories from being a little kid? Like, did you guys go in the forest and find squirrels and rabbits and sometimes see a bear or something?
Well, not bear. It's not that Canadian.
It wasn't that Canadian.
No moose there.
No moose around
there. Yeah, but that's it. I think it was just, there was always adventure, but I would say finest memory would be with my dog. Sorry to my sisters and everybody else, but the dog was certainly my best friend. So for a long time, younger.
What was the dog's name?
Nanook.
Nanook.
Yeah, so she was a white Spitz.
Who named her?
I don't actually know.
Probably you did. You said Nanook.
Well, I wouldn't have come up with that because that's like an Eskimo.
It is, yes.
But she's a white Spitz, definitely a beautiful dog. She could hide in the snow if she closed her eyes, and that was amazing. But yeah, she lived till almost 17 years old.
What year were you? I mean, how old were you when you got her?
8.
So she stayed with you for 17 years.
17 years, yeah.
You in your 20s when she left.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So those are the best memories of my childhood, hanging out with her.
Was there any time when you left and been away for a while and then came back as she got older?
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, not. I never went. I was always around. I did move out, but it was always. I didn't actually. I hadn't moved out until after she passed away.
How old were you when you moved out?
I guess 24 or something.
To go to college, or
I went to University of Montreal.
Okay.
So it was
to study what?
I did English and history major.
Why?
It's like a double major. Well, one is I love history a lot, and then back then I loved writing and I loved like reading, but beyond just let's say. Simple pop culture things, but actually like what were the meanings in what was the history behind all the literature.
What kind of connected. What kind of literature did you? What got you? When you said yes, I like this book. It made you feel really good.
Actually, I would have to say it was Shakespeare. Probably the last year of high school, I had this amazing English teacher. Yeah, you know how a teacher can change your
whole life.
Your whole life, and she changed my perspective. Where she kind of, instead of just going through Shakespeare, she kind of got us into the meaning of it, and it really wow, like the imagery that you can get from.
Give me an example.
I don't remember anymore.
But some of the things that you kind of remember, but something she.
Well, I think it was Macbeth, and I think it was that scene with Lady Macbeth, right, where she had.
Did she make you guys perform it or something?
On her hands?
Yes. Okay.
No, I think we had to memorize it, but it was the idea of like. I don't know the power of the images that we could get.
She knew how to paint those pictures in your head.
Yeah, and it was really amazing. So after that, it was kind of like, I kind of fell in love with that. But history has always been my thing.
What kind of history? What kind of history?
Well, actually every kind. Possibly World War II ends up being my favorite. But I'm not alone. There's a reason you can easily get interested in it. It's the most published subject in history.
Oh,
right?
okay, I got you.
And
it is.
It
I didn't
absolutely
know that.
is. It absolutely
World War
is.
II.
World War II. Yeah.
Because I just had someone on recently, the same thing.
Yeah.
Loves history, and he said World War II. He mentioned that.
Yeah, and
It's because it's the most published.
well, it definitely is the most published. So it's not that you love it because it's the most published, but obviously we're not alone, right?
Got you.
So
Okay.
it's a fascinating subject. There's so many stories involved.
And there's so many countries involved that you didn't think about it.
That's
So the
exactly
Canadians, no one know. From my point, the only thing I know is the American, the Germans, and the Japanese. That's all you basically know. But of course, you had the Australians, Canadians.
Sure, yeah.
Everybody was in that.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess that's why they called it World War.
Yeah, well, they.
No, but the
everybody-
Swiss were not involved.
Well, they were. They
But
just
they
didn't fight.
They said, yeah,
in
so
that
we
sense.
are not
But
going to.
I think everybody. It was almost impossible not to get
Right.
sucked into the war one way or another.
Yeah, right.
Even if you didn't want to, I guess
You had to do
that's going to
something
happen.
to defend yourself.
Yeah, and but that's fascinating. But it's like 20th century is century of kind of like modern warfare. It's kind of like war after war after war. But World War II is one of those very pivotal moments in our modern history, I think. So, and it's probably also the most photographed of.
That's of all the things
yeah,
in history, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. World War I is also really interesting.
But they couldn't cover it as well, of course.
Yeah, but there's other things like, as a kid, as a child, obviously I was very interested in Egyptian history, and that never goes away. It's just that you feel you've seen enough because how much more can you see? But when you go there, it's just
You've
amazing.
been there.
So I went there before my daughter was born with my wife, and it was actually before the revolution that ousted the President Mubarak.
Right.
And luckily, because we didn't necessarily always feel safe then, I wouldn't, it's a shame.
You went, right.
Yeah, it's actually a shame that things are a little bit out of control there because it's the most fascinating place to visit. I mean, we went inside the pyramids twice. We couldn't get enough of it. We went back another day.
With you and your wife.
Yeah.
She also just feels a passion for history.
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
That's good.
And we went up. We went all the way to Aswan, which is near Sudan, and we came back down the Nile to.
How long did you
Luxor.
stay?
Well, probably it was over a week.
Okay.
Yeah, and we went a bit off the beaten path where the tour guide we hired, he loved where we were going, which was the Temple of Seti in Abydos, but he was nervous because it's not the safest place.
Gotcha. Anything could happen, right?
They used to do army convoys to bring tourists there, but they stopped it. I guess there wasn't enough to make it worth it. So my wife had to cover up her head and everything to make sure. And even when he wanted to show us a mosque, he wouldn't slow down.
He just
so he felt it was dangerous. But once you're at the site, the army controls that, and you're generally pretty safe there. And it's unbelievable. I mean, you're talking about 3,000-year-old paint still all over the walls. The Temple of Dendara, beautiful colors everywhere. Just, it's fascinating. But there's something to me that it's missing, which I find the most interesting thing about history is that we're missing big pieces of our history. And I'm pretty sure within North Africa, under the Sahara, is our heritage. I feel that, and I know.
That's how you felt while you were there?
Well, we can't go there.
I mean, just the idea of that.
Well, the idea of that comes from that Egypt couldn't have just popped up like that. And the pyramids probably had a purpose before they were the pyramids. They didn't necessarily get built up as a pyramid, but they were probably wells, because there are other structures that look like the bases of pyramids, but they're obviously water wells. So that means that the Africans, that culture, which is gone, you know, like even Egypt itself wasn't Arab at the time, right? So there's a culture that is gone. But there, as the Sahara was taking over North Africa, they probably had to figure out how to get water at. And Egypt is probably the edge of a great civilization. So within or under the Sahara, now that we're able to see with like satellites, you know, I guess, what do you call it, topography?
Topography, right.
Under the Sahara, there was what they say is the biggest freshwater lake in the world. And that is only some thousands of years old, right? So we're not talking about 20, 30,000 years old. We're talking about well within human history. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of rivers, but it's all dried up and gone, covered. So what was there? I think that's fascinating. That's however, you know, that the deserts probably covered up or destroyed anything, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. However, the question of really how much do we know of our history is one of the most fascinating things. And there's some authors that they love to get into it. Of course, a lot of people consider them a little bit like, you know, because they don't follow let's say the house of history.
Right.
However, the questions are like, you know, so important. Mm-hmm. And of course, even in Turkey, sorry to keep talking.
No, you should. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, even in Turkey, they found structures like really megalithic, so made of huge rocks that are about 12,000 years old. And these have designs on it, you know, like scorpions and different things like that. And this was made 12,000 years ago, which they know because they can carbon date because it was buried for that long. So that's southern Turkey, and so one would imagine that doesn't fit our timeline of history 12,000 years ago. So what are we missing?
Right.
And I just think it's fascinating. Of course, I'm not out there digging in the desert.
But you're reading everything you can get your hands on.
That's right, exactly. So I find it extremely interesting.
And it's so easy nowadays too, because you have access to so much information so easily.
Yeah, that's right.
You can almost go as far as you want to down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah. I would say the sad thing is probably for anybody to do any real work in Northern Africa. I mean, like, how do you? I would say it's mission impossible. The Sahara Desert is so deadly.
So vast, right, of course.
Yeah.
To humans, right.
But it's a pretty fascinating idea.
Let's get into sports.
Sure.
When you were younger, of course you did hockey. What was your favorite sport?
When I was young?
Yes.
Hockey, Canadians. So I was lucky, I grew up. So the poor kids nowadays, they haven't seen a championship Canadian team, Montreal Canadiens, right? For a long time. But I grew up, there were championship teams, and even in my late teens, we had 2 championship teams, right? So that was really great. And then this massive dry spell. And so it was only this past year the Montreal Canadiens got to the Stanley Cup final. Right. So I think everyone was really, really excited. They got beat in the final, but I think they excited the city. It's been a long time. So, but that's the thing. Sports teams are really, you know, you can't switch. And if you do, it's like I believe the passion gets diminished, right?
Because you grew up with them, right?
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Like, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, huge Buffalo Bills fan, have been forever. But, you know, it's like, why do I pick the teams that go on these dry spells, you know?
You want a winner.
Yeah, but I do, and I never let it go. So, you know, I've had a lot of frustration there, but actually these past couple of years have been good, and, you know, fingers crossed, the Bills have a championship team coming out this season.
But you're going to be there watching them and rooting them on regardless.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're lucky now. When I first moved to Japan, we could never watch anything.
Well, yeah, right, you sure couldn't, unless you had a little box, and that would only be a few stations you could get every now and then.
Yeah. But
what year did you come here?
2002.
Okay.
Yeah.
2002.
Yeah, so now we can pretty much
get whatever you want, whenever you want, anything from any country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you finished college, what did you do from there? What was your first job?
So I worked for a manufacturing company. So I was doing, basically it's like
in Canada.
In Canada. It's I was doing project management to manufacture electronics. So this was kind of a, what do you call it, OEM? The OEM would be my client, but we were EMS, which is the manufacturing service.
Gotcha.
So my client was Alcatel at the time, and I was running the projects to get those. At the time, it was the motherboards or PC boards, PCBs, and we would manufacture them, get them out, everything, sticker, packaging, just like from beginning to end.
Okay.
So that was good. And
how long did you do that? How long did you do that?
Oh, it was some years, and I started off kind of learning the job, but then got into it. So the reason I got that job was my uncle was a director in Nortel.
Okay.
So he I think they used this company, which was basically a Montreal company, but they got big, and so I got that as a summer job, and then I went in full time because it just seemed like a good job. And then they got bought by IBM. So
they were big.
Yeah, and so they became something called Celestica, which was at the time the manufacturing wing of IBM. So it was kind of big. It was good. Then after 9/11, the telecom market crashed. You saw companies like Nortel get wiped off the map. But actually, we were good. I guess, thank you to Alcatel, we were still doing business, but that had an impact on me. I saw a lot of people leave. I kind of felt within that business we really are just numbers. So what ended up happening was, you could see the way people are treated when they're not needed anymore. And I guess you can say, well, that's business, but as an individual...
It was night and day.
Yeah, as an individual, I'm thinking, okay, so actually this created an opportunity for me. I was getting promoted because the less people, but they wanted to keep some people. In order to keep them, they promoted them. So I could say, oh, wow, lucky me. But actually, what I really felt was we are just numbers in the,
and your time may come eventually, right.
So at the time, there was one of the young ladies on my team, she was talking about, hey, you can go work in Korea or something. And I thought, wow, it might be a good time just to do something interesting.
Had you ever been to Asia at all?
Never. No. I've been to, at the time, Canada and the US.
Okay, gotcha.
So I had never been overseas, never, and it was just...
How old were you now at that time? Do you remember?
Gosh, in the 20s?
In your 20s? Yeah,
mid-20s or so.
Okay.
So then I just said to myself, like, why don't you just do it? But I ended up picking Japan. And I ended up starting in Osaka. And that was fun.
2002.
Yeah,
okay.
and it's going to be the same story you hear from almost everybody. I came here for 1 year.
all right.
But never left, right? So I think that's a very common story.
That's true.
But I certainly didn't want to leave and don't want to leave. I really enjoyed myself. And so I...
Oh, you're saying that now? You didn't want to leave and you don't want to leave. You're talking about right now. You feel that way.
Oh, yeah.
Not leaving.
My
you're not
family
leave.
and job.
Yeah. Well, see, I always say like this, why leave paradise once you find it?
Yeah, that's it. So,
I have no intention of leaving.
No, zero intent.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. So I think opportunities could come and it might be interesting for my family elsewhere, but we're pretty much
here.
Set in Tokyo. We love Tokyo. We love, especially the past year or so, we've traveled in Japan a little bit more than we
forced to.
Yeah, but that's, actually been good, I thought, in some sense.
How long did you live in Osaka?
About 2.5 years. So,
and then you came straight from Osaka to Tokyo?
Yeah, and that was for opportunity, because at a certain point you realize, okay, well, it's good to live here, but I really want to get involved in business and make bigger money. So I ended up looking around here in Tokyo, and I came across recruiting, right? And that was something I didn't know about before.
Prior to, right.
Yeah, and obviously many people may have known about a recruiting industry. I had no idea.
Yeah, right.
But I did like sales, and I decided to give it a try. It looked interesting. Back then, the market was rather much less competitive and not as mature as it is now. Although it was still rather competitive and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I fell in love with it. It was just.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
so
I really
so
did.
what market were you in?
Technology.
Technology.
Yeah.
So what positions were you looking for?
Well,
Were you in charge of?
at the time, starting off was what does a client need,
Okay.
and can I help them?
Right.
Now I've narrowed that down more, but I think one of the things that has never left me. So when I was a teenager, I used to work in restaurants as a part-time job, and I think that did great things for me. One, it taught me an intensity for the job, for work, because when you're in a restaurant, I mean, you can be lazy or something,
right.
but if you're good in a restaurant, there's an intensity to it, especially when it's busy. And that was really good. So actually I did have that intensity, and I enjoyed that. But also the customer service factor. I mean, if you're running a restaurant but you don't care what the customer thinks, you're not in business very long.
That's true.
And it's
That's true.
really, really
That's true.
important.
That's true.
And I think a lot of businesses, especially ones that get bigger, they lose that. And we see a lot about, it's more about our process than what you as a client want.
What do you think causes them to lose it when they start to get bigger? What are some of the reasons?
Well, I would identify the fact that there are always going to be people in a company that don't really want to do the job. So what they do is they kind of find positions where they can just simply tell other people what to do. And this basically creates, and I think it happens in a lot of companies, it basically creates a situation where the company's doing actions to serve the company rather than the client.
Okay.
Right?
So you say these people that really don't want to,
Yeah, but
they just want to keep a job maybe,
yeah, but that's it. I mean, they're going to act, they keep themselves busy by,
but they don't think about why they're doing it or who it's going to affect.
Yeah, I'm not sure people think
Okay.
that far.
Okay, they're not thinking that.
But the idea is like people keep themselves busy by, for loss of a better word, harassing other people.
Okay.
So that's generally what you see. However, the final product really goes back to serving that rather than the client.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You see? So one of the things that I've always, and I won't let it, I think it's one of the things that makes my job enjoyable is I simply focus on what does the client need. I don't care about competitors. I don't care about, that's why I started my own company.
So wait, so that's what you're doing now. You're in executive search right now.
Yeah, but I have my own company.
How long? Wait. Okay. You left Osaka. When
Yeah.
Osaka, that isn't what you were doing in Osaka.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then when you left Osaka and you came to Tokyo, you worked with the company who's executive search.
Yes.
And how long did you work with them before you started your own?
So actually, I just started in July, so it's really new.
You just told me that. That's what you just.
That's right.
Yes.
Well,
that's
why
why
they're going
That's
to
why
be
we're
on-
here. That's why we're here. We're
that's
getting to the meat of it now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You were telling me how you were so excited, and I get excited when people start their own companies because I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
I know the feeling, and that's for men and women. I mean, I enjoy it because the excitement's almost the same, but the women have a double advantage. They can have children. Not that all of them do, because that's what it feels like when you start your own company.
Right.
That's your baby.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it hasn't been a year yet, has it?
No, it hasn't. So the thing is, I've been really lucky because within consulting, is depending who you work with, which company you work with, you're not necessarily like managed or part of like that machine which actually exists out there. So I won't say that I won't lay any complaints on the past. The whole idea is though, like what really did I want to do is I don't want to do it other people's way. Is that the spirit of, people who start their own company? I hope so, because that's what, yeah.
But you want to make sure your personality shows through. The things that you really find important come through. Now, other companies might be doing the same thing, and you could have even worked with one.
Right.
But there's always, they might have put a little bit too much salt in.
Well,
it's not to your taste.
That's it. So
it
always ends up going in that direction, even if you join a small company.
That's right.
And if you join a small company, that may be exciting, and it's good. But if the company gets bigger and more successful, inevitably,
it's going to be the vision of whoever started it, first of all.
We see, or not even that person's vision.
That's right, it could be,
just
right. A company moving, and the gears are moving, but there's no passion behind it.
What reality dictates. And
right.
So I think, we don't need to focus on competitors. We don't need to focus on anything but what the client wants. And going back to what you originally asked me, so I don't necessarily fill every position a client wants, because we know our sweet spot, we know our strength.
Right,
so if we can't, we're not going to waste their time or disappoint them. However, I do have alliances or contacts with people who could specialize in that, so we can.
So you're keeping, you're trying to broaden your network.
Right.
You're always looking for people you can deal with, so you could say, I'm sorry, I don't handle that. However, this one over here does.
That's exactly it.
And that's good.
Yeah. And then
you need that synergy,
Yeah. So after all these years, you kind of figure out what works well, what's good, who you work well with. So obviously, I started the company with a partner, a friend, who we trust each other. We work really well together.
That's good.
And we complement each other.
Did you know each other before you started?
Since Osaka.
Oh, okay. So this is somebody you really know. Okay,
that's right. So, and the thing is, like all those things, we complement each other. We work well together. We trust each other. That to me was like, okay, that's an easy choice, and I believe for him it was as well.
Are you two basically the same age, almost?
He's a little bit younger, but yes.
Okay.
And then the third partner is actually my wife. And for anybody,
what kind of field was your wife in prior to executive search?
So she worked in different. She started off when she was in Osaka. She was working in, I think, a Japanese gaming company. She's very artistic, and she enjoyed graphic design, all this kind of stuff, and art. And then I think to move up to Tokyo, she ended up getting a job at one of those companies that sells and licenses images. And she was there a couple years, and then we got married, and then eventually my daughter, and she hasn't worked.
So she wasn't working up until she became your partner in business?
No, but the thing is, she's really clever, not just saying that in case you're listening, Tiger, but she's extremely clever.
She will be listening.
In order to, there's so many tricks in terms of how to get things done, right? And you can throw money at a problem, any business problem. I think you can throw money at it, whether it's, office space or getting license or accounting or all these kinds of things. However, to get through it all, I mean, she's been essential in terms of getting us set up and ready to start in July. And also, my circle of life now, I live in Azabu. I come to TAC, and the office is right down there.
You actually got a physical office?
Yeah.
What? You needed it? You need to have an office?
Well, that's
in your profession.
There's two sides to that.
Okay.
So one, certainly before the pandemic, people really like to meet us. And
so you want to have a place outside your home,
of course. Our consulting business is a people business.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. So, and people like to meet us. So it was okay to, meet them at TAC or other places. However, having office space is kind of good, and it also gives you credibility because people are making a big decision based upon your advice. And they want to know,
what have you invested in it? Yeah, what have you invested in this?
Yeah. So, however, it became like almost re-emphasized. Maybe a lot of people already realized it, but certainly re-emphasized at the beginning of the pandemic, almost right away. We don't need to meet people. We don't need to spend time commuting and doing all this stuff. You know, meeting's great, but it's not
absolutely necessary.
It's not absolutely necessary. It's not essential, and therefore, especially during the lockdowns and everything, people were doing.
They had no choice.
Every stage of a job change.
We're never seeing each other
On
in
Zoom
person.
or something.
Right. I mean, they see each other, but they're never being in the same space.
So from talking to me to getting a job offer and joining a company and onboarding on a company, all of it through like Zoom, for example. I mean, who starts a job process and then starts working and never met their coworkers in person, possibly not even yet, and yet everything's fine.
Right.
So the mentality change is massive. The spirit of what people can do and what they need to do has changed a lot.
So interesting. That is
Yeah.
so true.
So we don't need an office. However, for us, working together and not just on Zoom or something, we found was much more powerful.
Okay.
We really liked it. So we don't have a big office. We didn't get expensive service office or anything, but through the help of my wife, because we actually found a very nice little place, not so far from here.
Very close to your
So
home.
even if we need a big meeting space or something, just come over to TAC.
Why not?
But it's a great little place. We're really happy, and doing business every day together is much better than being remote. Does that suit everybody? No. But what we felt suited us was working
What's
together.
the name of your company?
Ryze Consulting.
Ryze Consulting.
Ryze.
Okay.
So Ryze
And that's
is,
spelled with a Z.
yeah, well, it's spelled R-Y-Z-E. or
R-Y-Z-E. I figured you said-
So R-I-S-E
R-I-S-E.
is quite common, right?
Right.
And
yours
so in order to
distinguish yourself, make yourself
yeah,
different.
or actually get the company name.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we just played with it a little bit, but when we got RYZ, we thought, oh, it looks kind of cool, but the meaning is the same, right? Going up,
Gotcha.
I got to, right?
Okay.
And that's the
Makes
purpose. So then on our website, the first image you'll see is standing on top of Mount Fuji and seeing the sea of clouds.
Okay.
And then there's other images about going up. And the whole
So
idea is like purpose of my job and what we do is helping people go up.
Gotcha.
So and companies go up. If they have the right people, the company does
Gonna go
great
up,
things.
of course.
And if people get they make a great job change, great things for everybody, family, everybody. So that's kind of like, that's why the name means a lot to us.
Now, what the website is what?
Ryze-recruit.com.
-recruit.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the company's name, Ryze Consulting, it's a K.K.
R-Y-Z.
R-Y-Z-E.
Z-E. Okay.
Yeah.
R-Y-Z-E.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the website, ryze-recruit.com.
Okay.
And it's in English and Japanese. And once again,
Are there pictures of you in it?
yeah, there is.
Okay, and your partner?
And partner and
Okay.
wife.
Okay, and wife. Okay.
Yeah. Well, she's. I mean, like I said, without her, we wouldn't
All right.
be up and running.
Okay.
She's done a wonderful.
I'll make
job.
sure I post that down in the description.
Oh, thank
section,
you.
So that'd be there. Of
Yeah.
course. Of course.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
But it's been a great first month or so,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking forward to many, many more. Right.
So
Yeah.
tell me, what would you like to end with? Besides this being a great month, how would you like to end this podcast? What are some of the things? Because I always ask people, what do you think about Japan? What are your feelings? You've already said you don't. I know how you feel about it.
Right.
How would you like to express that feeling? What are things about Japan you like or you love?
Well, I think maybe if we look at the way the Olympics went these past couple of weeks, I think it's a good reflection on Japan. I think Japan put a lot of effort, there was a lot of excitement, and the Olympics got derailed. And then it felt like, okay, well, we didn't want to hold the Olympics like this. We, or, Japan or Japanese people, we didn't want to hold the Olympics like this. But they came, and guess what? I think if you decided to sit and watch it on TV, you would have seen that it went really well. The events, for the most part, all went well. The athletes were fantastic. And now on goes Japan. And it's like you can try, I don't know how to, what I'm trying to say exactly in terms of, it's kind of a spirit thing. It's like you can, for some reason, you can always try to hit this country, this culture, this city with something. People saying, all the business is going to leave Japan and move to Hong Kong or Singapore or everything.
That's called Japan passing,
it's inevitable that the Chinese economy is going to take over. Actually, it's not. Japan is unbeatable. And I think one of the things is because the people are really special. I feel it's one of the safest, most wonderful places, friendly places.
For a big city?
For a big city. It's just
one
absolutely
of the biggest
wonderful.
in the world.
Yeah, and so I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm proud to raise my daughter here and have her be a part of it. And nothing being inevitable, I think Tokyo's going to continue to be one of the best cities in the world and Asia. And I hope businesses keep coming here, getting involved. There's wonderful people to work with. I think Japan's going to need a lot of different people from around the world to help, feed our society and economy. And I hope that the pandemic comes to a close soon and we start to see all those visitors and all those people from around the world in the city again, because it was quite amazing. And I know that the Japanese people want them back here, visiting and coming to Japan in the city. So fingers crossed for that it comes to a close soon, right?
Yes, Bill.
Was that a good ending?
That's beautiful. Listen, I can say you gave me goosebumps. It was so good. It's because of companies like yours, and companies are only a bunch of people together, basically. They're not autonomous. They actually have people in them. And as long as we have people like you making companies the way I'm sure yours is going to be made, and how big it's going to come, Japan's going to continue to be one of the best countries in the world.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bill.
My pleasure.
It's been fantastic.
It's been great talking to you.
All of you watching this, make sure that you press like, subscribe, and don't forget to continue to reach for the stars. It's all on loan, and you're too blessed to be stressed.